wildly successful, I found I can't do that. So,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
So, obviously, there is a specific kind of sound to the record.
Mhm.
What kind of type of music do you generally listen to? Is it in the vein with what you perform, or you kind of have a taste outside of what you do?
Generally, around everything over the course of my life, I find value in all music. What do I usually listen to? Honestly, jazz, classic jazz. That's what I have on in the background. I would keep that on all day. Um, but as you can hear, I have an appreciation for everything. The real roots, American music is it for me. With this recording, I kind of just, I recorded over a period of 2 months with different people.
Hmm.
Uh, Most of it online, collaborating. Wrote all the music, did the guitars and vocals and all that. But I didn't, unlike past things I'd done, I wasn't going for a specific sound. I just wrote the songs and recorded them as I could with what I had, with the people I had at the time, and didn't really, for once, put a lot of thought into uh, stylistically what it would sound like.
Yeah.
So if they do sound different from song to song, and of course, you want to go back at some point. So take the song "Blowback" on the album, which is a take on the concept of blowback. It came out acoustically. I was playing around with it acoustic. Of course, I wanted a rockier version. You conceive it in your head. Yeah, but it just seemed to come out that way, and I was in. And at the end of the day, I was fine with it. Some of those were demos that I just liked and said, "Oh, just build on them and let it go as it is." So I didn't put a lot of thought into it for once, because a lot of times our tendency is to totally, especially in this day and age when we have technology at our fingertips. And as you know, as I said earlier, I'm not the best with technology, but I have friends who are, so that's beneficial. But with all this technology at our fingertips, we tend to overthink things so much. And I didn't want to do that. I just want to kind of just bang it out. I saw something on Bob Dylan just the other day on how he recorded, what was it? Blood on the Tracks. And some of the session musicians were interviewed, and they had said that, yeah, Bob comes in and we didn't have a producer. We had an engineer, but there was no producer. He didn't tell us what he wanted. He said, "Here's the song." And one of the direct verbatim quotes was, "Oh, and here's the bridge," and it's just kind of a bridge like any other bridge. Didn't tell them the chords, and they were amazed. But they said it was one of the best, most liberating experiences of their lives as musicians and artists. And they just kind of slapped it together. And unlike, say, and I'm a fan of U2, and I really respect them, although the song American Soul was actually inspired by a Jeff Deist post from a Rolling Stone interview with Bono. Jeff Deist from Mises, from a Rolling Stone interview with Bono a while back.
That's hilarious.
You listen to their music now, and it sounds, and again, subjective, but it sounds like overthinking and too much. It sounds like too much technology at your disposal as an artist, to me. Where you look at their earlier work and it's more raw and visceral. You hear it more. It's more organic. So. Anyway, in a roundabout way, I hope I answered your question.
No, absolutely.
I forgot what your question was.
No,
we
that's
there.
Good. That answered all of the points in it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess I don't even need to ask the "how does music factor into your life" question, because as a musician, I already know how it factors into your life. It's pretty much probably there for every minute of it in some form or fashion. The only thing that got in the way of music for me was podcasts.
Yes. Hey, I get that too. It's the economics. It's the economics of time. I don't do podcasts like you.
Yeah.
But you only have so many hours in the day.
Well, and I have the luxury of that my day job. I literally drive around in a truck all day. So I just put my headphones in and listen to people talk about stuff while I drive from location to location. And then,
which is pretty cool. That's good. I mean, the maximization, you get to maximize your time that way while at
Exactly.
work,
It's like if I have
which
to
is
drive,
fantastic.
I might as well learn something while I'm doing it.
Absolutely. And hey, I come from Los Angeles, man.
Oh
Going
God.
anywhere takes 2 hours. So I started doing that as much as I could a few years back. Just if I'm going to be sitting in the car, I'm going to be learning or being inspired by something or recording something, into your phone.
So,
I totally get that.
so the question, unless you want to ask it, Liz, the soundtrack question.
Well, we'd like to ask if there's a particular moment that you can think of that is linked to a song in your mind. Just like if that song were to come on, you would just be right back there, kind of in that moment.
Oh man, music is the soundtrack of our lives.
I know.
So every
Yeah.
wow, there's so many. Pick a scenario. What kind of
Well, I remember the song that was playing the first time I made out with a girl. So there's that.
yes, there
And
there is
it was the
those.
Who,
Oh, what song was it?
the Substitute. Believe it or not.
Wow,
That's a good soundtrack
that's awesome.
song.
Here's one for me. So I started dating my wife in high school, and I would go. We'd hang out at her house.
Must be
Speaking
nice.
of the Who. Oh, how about that?
I'm part of the
Back
Second Husbands Club over
back in the
here.
day. So her grandmother was 90 or however old she was. And she was in a chair, and one of the first times I was over there, we could hear her in the other room, and she's rocking out to Teenage Wasteland.
That's
And-
awesome.
And it was the first time because you're nervous when you first start getting together, of course, and you're a little insecure. You're not sure what you're allowed to laugh at and what you're not allowed to laugh at. And we tried to sit there for a couple seconds and ignore the fact that Grandma was rocking out to Teenage Wasteland. It was MTV back when they played videos, and we just started cracking up, and it was we realized
That's a moment for sure.
hey, we can laugh at the same things. That's good. That's human connection.
That's an important connection too.
I'm sure you and Lizzie, it is what you like. Yeah, and then whether it's our friends or, I'm like you. I'm looking at your page right now. It says Tolkien nerd. I'm all about it.
Yeah. Nice.
I love it. And horror, I love it. It was raised on creature feature
There you
and
go.
science fiction. By the way, who are your favorite science fiction folk?
Oh, I mean, I'm a hard guy, so Asimov for sure.
Okay.
I like a lot of Bradbury's work. Not that he
Yes.
gets on the science fiction. He's more of more of a cultural commentator in my
Yeah.
experience. I'm trying to think here. Honestly read more horror. Science fiction is usually a film-based thing. I like sci-fi movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think science fiction, a lot of those films, whether they know it or not, whether the creators know it or not, the libertarian themes are strong, typically, in science fiction films.
What is they remade the one where the man, like the giant steel man, comes to Earth. They made a movie about it, remade it a couple years ago. But I always loved the original 1950s edition.
Yes.
What, Metropolis?
No, is it The Day the Earth Stood Still?
The
Possibly.
name escapes me.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. It was it was a black and white. The original, it was really good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the remake was okay. It was focusing on like green, going green, and all that stuff. and,
Okay,
like how human
yeah.
beings are destroying the planet.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the treatment of that.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm one of those ultra rare environmentalist libertarians.
Okay. No, I'm with you all the way. That's something that's interesting. You've probably gone down these holes too. I was very much, and when I was going back to graduate school, I was very curious about the environmental sciences. I didn't follow that through. I moved into something else. But I'm, as you probably have thought through this, I'm very much more. I think we should throw a lot more, add a lot more private property to the discussion of concepts of private property, to the discussion of going green, to the discussion of
well, I
environment.
mean,
What's a good
I am a firm believer that, I will argue this till the end of time, that the FDA does far more harm than good, just by its sheer existence. By those three letters existing, it makes people believe that somebody has their best interests in mind, and it's just not the case. It's an organization that exists to transfer wealth from companies without actually damaging the companies.
Yes.
It's like, hey, here's the token fine that you pay that makes it seem like we're doing something about this, but it's not big enough to hurt you.
Yes.
So it's just cronyism at its worst. And
absolutely.
But it gives people an illusion that something is being done about the horrible things that happen in the environment. And that's just not the case.
It lures people into complacency.
Well, and it sets up a system where that company can go, well, we're following the EPA regulations.
Yes,
and
so
when they do that, you lose legal grounding for recourse. Whereas, who gives a shit about the what the EPA regulations are when you're damaging people? Like, I'm gonna sue you now because you have damaged my life and my property doing what you do. And losing that ability as a people is just unconscionable to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, you hit it on the head there, I believe. If private property rights are strongly defined, you know who to blame and you know who you should be able to sue should you be injured or your property destroyed. Absolutely.
Like, I should just be able to sue a company into the ground so that they have to sell to a company that will presumably manage it better than they did.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and like you touched on it there, the whole all these issues we see, the Flint, Michigan water issue, all of these issues, like you said, I think people get lured into that complacency, thinking that the government or whatever government bureaucracy has their back. And as you just said, that's not the case.
Well, that's the part that always keeps me from getting too jaded, is that ultimately, like, I understand that intention. Nobody wants to sit and think about this stuff all the time.
Yes.
Like, who wants to worry? You want to worry about your life and the people you love. You don't want to sit and think about, oh, well, there's this terrible thing, and what are we going to do about this problem? What are we going to do about this problem? It's daunting.
Yes.
But at a certain point, you have to take control of your life.
Absolutely.
And pay attention.
That's another thing there too, to touch on. Talking about people taking care of people. I think when you look back over the last 100 years in America, you see the growth of the federal government has a direct impact on the destruction of communities. And it creates those vertical linkages to DC from wherever you are in the United States. And that takes those vertical linkages, take away from the horizontal community linkages, which people need, which goes back to the genius. It's failed, but goes back to the genius of the Constitution, the federalism, government at the smallest possible level. So people in the communities, we got to get back to communities because communities take care of themselves. And when you're waiting on a vertical check or what have you from the federal government or protection from the federal government, it totally destroys quietly, subtly, destroys those horizontal linkages which we need in community. And that goes back to what you said. I think you don't have that kind of complacency when you don't have that kind of complacency and people, you go outdoors now, and again, this comes from a person. I've lived in a lot of different places. I've lived in from Los Angeles to smaller towns, and people in the community don't interact as much as they did before. Kids don't play as much together anymore, and it's a variety of reasons. But the one is, I think, is the growth of the bureaucracy in the federal government, and moving away from states' rights and county rights and city rights,
and individual rights,
and all the way down to the individual. Absolutely. So, and then you have to ask that begs the question: well, what is destroying that? And it is the federal government, over and over. And not to get too libertarian dorky, of course, we can trace the growth of that government back to the Federal Reserve. It all goes back to the money, which funds all these things. So I don't know if you want to go down that road.
Well, that's